In one hand, I have a Samsung SSD, and in the other hand, I have a Western Digital HDD. And you came to this video to figure out between these two types of drives, which one you should buy. If you are wondering which drive is better, you have come to the right video, because in this video, I'm going to explain the difference between SSDs and HDDs, which one is more practical in what situation, and which one you should buy. And just so you know, I have linked down below in the description the type of SSDs and HDDs that I do recommend you buy. So once you watch this video, I would check those out. And just one more thing to know, this video is geared more towards video editors. So I'm going to be kind of looking at everything through like the video editor microscope. You'll still get some benefits and value out of this video if you're not a video editor, but just so you know, I'm going to be explaining mainly the benefits and the downfalls of the SSDs and HDDs when it pertains to video editing. So without any other further delay, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. First, explaining about the hard disk drive here. Now, this drive here in particular, like I said, this is the Western Digital drive. There's many other hard drives, but this is probably the most common one you're going to find on Amazon. Now, the way any hard disk drive works is it has moving parts in here. That's why it's so big. Pretty much it's like a series of discs on here that spin around, and it's like a needle that comes in, similar to like a record player that reads the information, writes the information. And if you're editing off this thing, it's doing that same process as you're editing, reading and writing information. Now, the downside to hard disk drives are, number one, they're big, clunky, and they have moving parts. Those parts I just explained, the needle and the drive. And in comparison to the SSD, it's really slow. And when I say really slow, I mean like really slow. I'm talking about light years slower than the SSDs. That's because, like I said, it has moving parts. Even when you first plug it up to your computer, it takes a long time to boot up. And if you ever attempt to edit off this thing, it's possible, but it's almost like editing off like an SD card. It's really not like optimals for video editing whatsoever. And when you put color grading and other little effects and edits into your video, you can forget about it. Another downside to the HDD, especially if you're a video editor, and I assume you're going to be like traveling, you know, putting your stuff in a backpack, going from location, you know, editing at different places, coffee shops or wherever, this thing is very fragile. Matter of fact, let me show you something. So this right here is an older version, I don't know if you can see that, of the Western Digital hard drive right here. Now, this hard drive right here, it does not work. Now, I have a lot of photos and videos. I'm talking about from my older kids being born to like growing up, like probably about 8 to 10 years worth of video and photo files on here that I cannot access. Why? You might ask, because like I said, these things are very fragile. And if anything happens to the moving parts inside of this thing, you can forget about it. Now, there are different like restoration options. Like I know Best Buy, they have like the Geek Squad, and there's other companies that, you know, could probably attempt to save some of the information on here. And I actually had something scheduled around when the pandemic started, but I never followed through with it. And this thing has literally been sitting in a drawer with files on here that are not obtainable. So like I said, these things are very fragile. I used to edit off of this thing all the time, so probably just going back and forth, you know, getting banged around in my bag. Something probably threw like that playhead off, or a disc probably got loose, and this drive, you know, unless I can salvage anything on here, it's useless. So at this point, you're probably looking at the HDD like this thing is fragile, it's slow. Why the hell would you ever want to buy this? Now, one thing I'll say, in comparison to the SSD, this is a very cheap drive. I think this drive in particular, which is 5 terabytes, by the way, I think it cost me about, this one in particular, because it's optimized for Mac, which I edit on Mac, it cost me about $125, but you can get the standard drive for about $80, which is probably at least a third cheaper than the SSD. And that's like me combining like a 5 terabyte HDD to like a 2 terabyte SSD. And we're going to get to the specs and the price of the SSD I use in particular. But like I said, this is way cheaper than the SSD. And also, to the best case scenario to buy an HDD, in my opinion, would be to only store footage on. I'm talking about footage that you just want to, you know, you do a shoot and you don't need the files anymore and you just want to keep the raw files. I would definitely buy an HDD only to just store files of old projects, store, even pictures are fine. Just, not ideal for travel. You really have to make sure you store these things somewhere safe where it's like moving around. Because like I said, with the moving parts inside of here, it's really fragile. It's not meant to be shaken. If you drop it, I can assure you that there is a 80 to 90% chance that this thing will break. And that's any hard drive due to the way that it works on the inside. But like I said, the benefit to buying a drive like this is because it's cheap and you can store a lot of footage on here for cheap. Now let's get into the SSD. Now, every video editor should be editing off of an SSD. Why do I say that? That's because these things are lightning fast. Now, the way an SSD works is there are flash chips inside here that are literally stuck in place. They do not move. So you'll hear people describe a SSD as having no moving parts because it literally has no moving parts. If you can see the dings and stuff on here, I have dropped this thing numerous times. Now, I don't recommend you test out dropping it to see if it still works, but I can tell you that I've dropped this thing a number of times and it still works perfectly. I hope it never breaks because pretty much the way that I use this is anything that I shoot and then I'm going to edit, I literally edit off of this thing. I take, my SSD card, plug it into the computer, load my entire project onto this. And like I said, this thing is lightning fast. Now, the fact that this has no moving parts is fast. It comes at a premium price. And when I say premium price, I mean premium price. Like I was telling you with the HDD, that is a 5 terabyte hard drive, cost me $125. This is a 2 terabyte SSD. I actually got this on sale about 2 to 3 years ago. It was on sale for $250. When I literally look this thing up to link it down in the description below, I see that this 2 terabyte SSD is currently selling for $450. So although I have this link down below, I do not recommend that you buy this for $450. If you can go to maybe like B&H and find it for cheaper, you definitely don't have to spend $450 on an SSD. The other one that I have down in the description, the SanDisk, that's another one that I use. I would recommend you buy that one over this one, unless that price comes down anytime soon. So to summarize everything that I said in this video, get yourself an SSD to edit your photos off of, edit your videos off of. You're gonna thank yourself later for making that decision because the performance is just undeniably better. And once you are done with that project, once you deliver it to a client, have you a couple of hard drives that you can store those raw files on just in case you ever need to go back to it for any reason at all. So that's pretty much what I'm going to leave it at with this video. I hope you guys really found some value in this one. And if you did, all I ask, if you could just go ahead and smash that like button for me, I would really appreciate it. Subscribe for more videos, tips and tutorials, video production, everything. And until next time, I will catch you guys in my next video. Peace out.